I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, I have drawn you with loving kindness. Again, I will build you, and you will be rebuilt. Jeremiah 31, verses 3 to 4. Okay, let's recite that one more time. I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, I have drawn you with loving kindness. Again, I will build you, and you will be rebuilt. Jeremiah 31, 3 to 4. I just want to share 3 quick encouragements that this verse encouraged me with this week. And the first is that I can run back to God when I sin because He's a God who loves me. I like this first verse here. I've loved you with an everlasting love. For us as parents, when do you say, I love you to your children? Is it usually after the children have done something good or after they've done something bad? I think for the majority of parents, we would say, I love you to our children after they've done something good. But the question is, when does God say, I have loved you with an everlasting love? In the context of this verse, the Israelites have sinned greatly against God. They've been unfaithful to God by worshiping other idols, and now God's punishing them by sending the Babylonians to them to capture them and send them into captivity. The Israelites were in such a deep pit, and yet it's in this context that the Lord says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. And the practical application for me is that when I sin, I'm reminded by this verse that I can run back to the Lord, and the Lord does not greet me with the question, what did you just do? But instead, the Lord greets me with, I have loved you with an everlasting love. I love this picture here of the prodigal son. It's a wonderful reminder that when the prodigal son came back to the father greeted him with a hug and with a kiss and not with a rod. And in the same way, it reminds me that if I fall, to run quickly back to the Father because He'll greet me with the words, I have loved you with an everlasting love. So that's the first thing. The second thing which encouraged me from this week's memory verse is that I was reminded to live God for Himself and not the gifts that God gives. This second part of this verse says, I have drawn you with loving kindness. I really like that word, drawn. God doesn't push His love on us, but He draws us towards Him. And how does He draw us? He uses His loving kindness. And when I look at my life, I think of the blessings that God has given me. God's given me a wonderful, wonderful wife. He's given me a wonderful church, a little family. And it's easy for me to look at these things and just be captivated by it. But what this verse reminds me is that the reason why God gives me these things is not so I could be captivated by the gifts, but so that I would be more captivated by Him. Imagine one day as a father, I'm going to give a gift to my little daughter. And what if she looks at that gift and she says, Daddy, thank you so much for this gift. And she runs back to her room and slams the door and enjoys the gift by herself. I think I'd be very sad. But I've noticed in the same way, it's very possible that we treat God in the same way, that when He gives us gifts, we're so captivated by it. And so what this verse reminds me is that even when God gives me a blessing, the point of it is that I'd be further drawn to Him, that I should love the giver of the gifts and not the gifts themselves. And the last thing which encouraged me from this memory verse is that God will help me to fulfill the perfect plan that He has for my life. If you were to ask the Israelites, do you think that Jerusalem would ever be rebuilt? I think most of them would probably say, no, that's impossible. The Babylonians are here. They're going to burn down the city. How in the world is this city ever going to be rebuilt? And yet in this context, God says, again, I will build you and you will be rebuilt. Is there anything too difficult for the Lord? And the way I apply this to my life is this. I didn't take my Christian life seriously till maybe about 9 years ago. And so for the first 20-something years of my life, I lived for myself. And it's very possible for me to look at my life and think, well, Lord, I wasted the first 20-something years. How am I ever going to finish that perfect plan that you have for me in my life? But the encouragement for me through this week is the Lord says, I will rebuild you. And so it gives me confidence to believe that, Lord, the inner life that you wanted me to have while I'm here on earth, you will definitely help me to attain it. The purpose for which you created me to serve this generation, you will help me to fulfill it. The perfect plan that you have for my life, you will definitely help me to achieve it so that I can stand before your judgment throne one day and to have tremendous, tremendous joy. I speak with such confidence, not because I have confidence in myself, but I have confidence in a God who loves me with an everlasting love and says to me, again, I will rebuild you. God is impartial, and he will certainly do this for any of his children who believe in him. So these are some of the encouragements that encouraged me for this memory verse this week, and I hope it can be of some encouragement to you as well.